All right, hey YouTube. It's been a while. I apologize for the lack of updates. My work has been kind of crazy. On top of that, I have been grinding on a lot of things. I've said before, I try not to record a lot of the fiddly stuff, um, meaning in Blender and things like that, where I'm failing at Blender and just taking hours upon hours to adjust things. For example, I will show you something. There's been a lot going on. A lot going on. I've made a lot of changes. So let's take a look at this one. This is some of the fiddly stuff. So I've added some monuments. Now, all of these 3D assets are mine. It's not like a pack I bought or anything like that. I'll show you my workflow on how I get these in a moment. But this is some of the fiddly stuff. All these white boxes are the collision for this. I noticed that, there is a trick in Blender where you can just kind of duplicate everything and then make it, a collision. That tends to drop your frame rate if you're not just using like cylinders and boxes, stuff like that. So, I mean, this took me hours to go in and put all these boxes in for all the collision, etc. For those of you that don't know, when you have a file in Blender and you want to do your collisions in Blender, when you save the file, you do _COL, and that will show up in Godot as collision. So I've added a monument. This guy is it's just like a wooden fort. Again, I've got all of these assets I actually generated using AI. It's a bunch of individual pieces that I, spent some hours putting all this together. The catapult is not functional yet, trebuchet. That's not functional yet. I still need to work through how things move in Blender, etc. I did another monument right here. Not the best. This is my first one. I had some castle pieces that I generated using AI and some buildings that I generated using AI, and slapped them into a monument using Blender, put them on, resized them, moved them around, and then put them into Godot. And then I told Godot to do monument, or, I told Cursor to, hey, make all the monuments spawn. Right, so a lot has transpired since I last gave an update, so we'll go ahead and go into the game real quick, and I will walk through some stuff. Again, I'll go over my workflow for getting those assets here in a moment, but I can show you guys what's going on. We're going to do a pretty large world because I have the monuments randomly spawning on the map. It'll flatten the area where the monuments are and then do some sort of blending on the terrain. As much as it can. I have added in a new player mesh that I generated with AI, so the player is going to look a lot different, which I'll show you. I'm using Mixamo animations for the moment. I still need to work on the animations for sure, but I've added a ton of items in the game, a ton of 3D assets in the game, and I will show you guys. I don't know if I've updated you guys. I don't remember, but I have added it to where you can destruct buildings, and I'll show you how I made the animations for those. I actually baked the animations inside of Blender to destruct the buildings. I feel like that is going to save a lot of resources in the game from the game actually doing the physics. That's my assumption. So we are in the game. I have added grass. Looks pretty decent, not too bad. I made my own trees. This took hours. So, I'll talk about my workflow again in a minute, but, these are 2D images, removed the background, made a few different types of branches, made a 3D model of the trunk using AI, and then I went in and added every single one of these branches and their sizes and their rotations and all that stuff. I used Cursor and I said, give it like a gentle wind motion, right? So it looks like it's kind of moving. When I first added those trees, my frame rate dropped to 11. And then I told Cursor, hey, I'm having frame rate problems. Can you do what you did with the grass when you added the grass? And my frame rate dropped. And it has to do with batching the draws. Again, using AI for all this. So I'm not super familiar with it, but everything that draws onto the screen, it's actually batching them. So it had 80 draws per tree, and now it's at 4. So very cool. I've added the sounds for day and night. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that yet or listened to that yet. So if we go night, it's going to crossfade into some crickets and such. So, all right. So we got our monument spawning. So let's go take a look. I'm going to fly over here. It's pretty cool. I need to add damage to the spikes and stuff like that, but not too bad for, I need to add climbing up ladders as well, but you can walk around on all this stuff. Here is the new character mesh. So, I added in some Mixamo animations. If you are going and making meshes for your characters, Mixamo likes OBJ files. It does not like GLB, and that's where I was kind of failing. So if you want to upload your own character mesh that you get off of AI, like you're generating one or you created one into Mixamo, you're going to want to use an OBJ or an FBX file. I believe this one is in FBX, but let's take a look at some of the items I added in the game. So I got some flax in there, gives me cloth, right? Another cool thing that I did was I put in where items are dropping onto the ground. So I've got pretty much everything can be thrown in onto the ground. I've got some spell books. I've added, I know I'm kind of going rapid fire, but I've added some particle animations. Very simple, but it adds kind of a little bit to where, oh, okay, I'm actually hitting this. I did the same with the trees. They should come out brown. And then another thing I did, well, for one, we got a bunch of equipment slots, and I'm going to be working on equipping equipment and having it show into the game. Like I said, I've added a ton of 3D assets to the game, all using AI. I've made an admin tool. By pressing F2, I can go in and give myself pretty much every item in the game, right? So I can put it in my inventory just by clicking on it. I've done all of these thumbnails, which takes quite a long time to make sure they're like centered and the correct size, all that kind of jazz. So we can start tossing things into the world, and they will rotate for a little bit and then they'll stop. This prevents them from just kind of glitching out sometimes and going through the map. So they'll rotate for just a little bit, then they'll stop. So I got some bandages, herbal bandages, workbenches. So let's show you some of the stuff we got going on here. So I have different levels of doors now. So I've got a wood door, an iron door, and a steel door. Each are going to have higher HP to blow up. I reskinned the bloomery. I wanted a different bloomery. I think this is a pretty good one. I've added a ton of spell books. The spells are to come, but I've added a ton of these spell books in here. You can kind of see it did a pretty good job on those. Kind of gets a little weird on some of the wording on there. Let's see, what else do I got? So I've got these armor pieces. I didn't add those 3D models in yet, but I added the thumbnails. Those are the ones that are going to be, it actually looks just like this, which is pretty sweet once they get equipped. So I've got steel and I've got iron. I got some locks, code lock, key, a code lock and a ring. I've got a rock, which should actually, yeah. Because players are going to spawn with a rock. Notice how lovely and large that is. I have not adjusted that yet, but it should collect both wood and, yeah, there we go. And I'll adjust the collection rates. Added some flux in there. I'm going to have some pretty cool crafting things going on. We've got our mana, aether, and brimstone fragments. These are going to be used for spells, and also the brimstone is going to be kind of for raiding when you have the correct spellbook to do so. I've got some gems I'm going to be adding where you can enchant your items. If you are familiar with Diablo 2, I'm a big fan of that. So that was one of the best games, and it's in my top 5 for sure. So, I'm going to use some of the similar mechanics they have going on there. Let's get these different workbenches in here. I've got some scrolls. All of these have 3D assets, thumbnails, and can be thrown into the game. So we got some scrolls going on. That is a giant wooden shelf. Just made it smaller. Okay, so let's do a little bit of building real quick, and I'll show you some of the workbenches. It turned out pretty decent considering. Considering it is, an AI mesh that I generated. And the other thing is an altar, and I'll show you what that's all about as well. So we got the traditional workbench. Press E on it, you can craft items, right? Each one of these is going to have, this is the alchemist bench. It'll have, obviously I need to add a potion section, not just for meds, but you can craft all these potions, and they have recipes, right? So some of the herbs and flowers you can find in the world. Let's get this guy. It's a blacksmith workbench, right? You can make those doors, armor sets. Okay. Then we got the arcane workbench. So this is going to be for the spell books, for the spells, brimstone fragments, which essentially allows you to raid other people's bases. And then you will also be able to enchant your items here. So let me show you the altar. If you are familiar with Rust and the base building mechanics, you need a way to protect other people building next to you. So what I made is an altar. So what this does is not only is there upkeep for your base, and your base will actually degrade over time, and you can put whatever you want in there. As of right now, everything is just stone. I'll have wood and other types, but it tells you how long your upkeep is. It'll degrade over time if you don't have the resources in there that it needs. It's duplicating items. That's awesome. But what's cool about this is you can actually lock it and add idle. So one of the things I'm going to be adding to the game is in these different monuments, like this wooden fort, or you got this ruined castle or what have you, there's a chance that you're going to be able to find like a head bust, right? So a little head statue, and you'll be able to mount it to this altar, and it'll give you certain benefits within the radius of the altar. So other players cannot build within this radius. You can authorize people on your team. They can come in and authorize on this and be able to build and everything else. So, and that all works. I've tested it with joined players. So you got your fragments there. Let's see, I got some chests going on. Got a small chest there, large chest. I need to adjust the sizes, obviously. Let's test out our bloomery. I actually don't know. There we go. Got our bloomery. I'm going to be adding a little slot for flux here, which will allow players to craft steel using flux. So let's see. Amulets, right? What's cool is you'll be able to enchant those and find ones that are enchanted, giving you certain buffs. The hoe, I'm going to be adding farming at a certain point. It's not high on my to-do list. But yeah, I've got, a ton of items in here. There's a cloth armor set and a leather armor set that I have not added yet. That's why you don't see those. I added a crossbow. It's not fully functional yet. Got some new arrows that don't look like garbage. I got a padlock, which actually looks pretty cool. The skin on that's pretty dope. Looks like the shading doesn't work on it, but that's fine. So that's a single lock. Only one player can use that lock. There is a code lock for multiple players. Let's give this wooden shelf a go. I'm not sure if I actually made it so you can place it in the world yet. Nope. With wooden shelves, I'm going to make it so you can snap little chests onto the shelves. They'll snap kind of like the building pieces, right? So the building pieces, it'll show like green. I'm going to make the shelves like that, so it's not a bunch of jank trying to get chests onto shelves. Let's see. What else do I got going on? I got a skull in there. These are all the gems are to enchant your items. Let's see. Got all my tools. I've got stone tools. I've got that's another. Is that 2 stone ones? Oh, did I not get the right thumbnail on this? Let me see. Yeah, there's a steel axe, which is odd because that is not the right thumbnail for that, but that's okay. That can be fixed. So yeah, this just kind of allows me to roll through and add items, test them, that kind of stuff. I got steel ingots in here as well. But everything, I'm kind of doing everything in the order that I think it needs to be, right? I want everything to be able to spawn in the game. You can pick it up. If you've got a stack of something, you can pick it up, whatever. But I will be adding things you can break and items come out of it. So lootables, right? You break a barrel, things fall out. Also a chest, stuff like that. You know, I've added these flowers that are used for potion making that you can find throughout the world. Okay, so I think that's it for the items and an update. Yeah, pretty much just grass, monuments. I have added, I don't know if you guys have seen that, and I actually took it out. I added chests that you can go in the monuments and loot. So there would be chests around here. You could go in and loot them, and then they disappear and respawn later with a random loot table. So that is working. I just have to go in and put them in where I want them. I also have added something kind of cool, and I will show you what it is before we go into my workflow to get all this stuff kind of built by AI. It's definitely not free. So let's do this. Let's do a new agent. I'm going to show you guys something here. So I have some art from another project that I'm working on. It's actually a board game, but some of that art, which I own and I actually paid for, is some mobs, right? NPCs, enemies, etc. I took that art and I put it into Trippo. I generated a model, and I imported that model into Mixamo and gave it some animations. And then I put it in the game and told Cursor to hook everything up and make it so it, follows you around, all that kind of stuff. And attacks you, and it actually looks pretty cool. So this is the very first mob, if it can find it. And to be honest, I wonder if it's right here. Yeah, we're gonna do this. It is this guy. In Cursor, you can go in and pin certain agents, right? So if you know you're going to be working on one specific thing, like monument spawning, I usually say monument spawning, and then I give it a prompt, and it'll name it like that, and I can pin it and go back to it. Let's spawn to commons. Let's see what the last thing it said. Yeah, I had 40 of them spawn. Let's spawn to 20 set up like before. So I'll try to do more recordings on this. If you guys want to see me do all of the grind work that it takes to do collisions and set this up and take all of these pieces and build something, let me know, and I can record it and then possibly just chop it up or something, or speed it up. But leave a comment or something, and I will actually do one where you get to watch a full session. Maybe I'll just go super fast on it. Most of my sessions are 4 to 12 hours, just depends. So that's doing its thing. Let's see what it's got here. Okay. Preload as before. It's gonna spawn up. Okay, cool. They might fall off the map, but it's okay. We'll give it a go. The other thing I will show you guys. So, I mean, I added cloth plants and herb flowers and stuff, and you can adjust their spawn rates for now. Turned off terraforming by default. I don't know if I'm going to leave it in the game. It costs a lot of resources, and it's not very smooth for a giant map. So I will reapproach that at a certain time. I do love the concept of being able to terraform, especially, level a spot for your base kind of thing. Here they come. He's coming. Yep. So yeah, he's kind of wigging out, but looks pretty cool, right? So ouch. I actually, I have my ouch sound still in there. I don't know where the other guy is. He probably flew off the map. As of right now, just the logic is follow me around and attack me. But these are the types of monsters I'm going to have, or enemies that are spawned in the monuments. They'll have some logic where they're, idle and roaming around, and then when they see you, they'll attack you and all that kind of stuff. So he definitely looks pretty cool. I'm excited for what's to come. I'm going to use, a lot of the art I already have. Let's see if I can kill him real quick. I think it's sword only, to be honest. He's gonna murder me. Let's see. No, it's this one.
Ouch. Ouch. Ouch.
And ouch. Left this, and he's dead. Okay, cool. So, mobs are coming, right? I'll have them spawn in the monument areas. I have different ones. There's going to be a lot of them that cast spells. There's just going to be some basic ones that run up and attack you. All that kind of fun stuff. So the thing I have not shown you yet is I set up a system to have the buildings destruct. So when you're raiding someone's base, it will actually blow up and show you. So let's do this. Let's do wall. Let's get this guy going. I like these windows. Okay, we'll get some doorways in here. Some ceilings. I actually had to redo my buildings, not redo the building system, but fix it. I made some changes, went away for a while, came back, and it was not, I didn't remember what was going on. So that was fun. That took some hours to get going again. Let's do, it's right here. So we got our spiral staircase. Let's get some doors in here. I only have the animation for a certain one. Actually, let me see. Oh, you know what? I removed that. It's not a problem. We're going to do this anyways. So, obviously, the fire spell is not going to be the one that destroys it. But they've got animations where they blow up. Those animations I made in Blender. I told ChatGPT to make me a script to break something into pieces and do an animation, and you can use scripts in Blender. There's a spot for it. And so I actually baked all of these animations in Blender. It's not actually rendering these animations or I guess the pieces with physics and stuff in the game. These are just straight animations. Notice how they kind of stop right there. But yeah, so let's see if this still works. Where are we at here? Yeah, okay. So just some basic rating, right? Like you've got your Spellbook of Breach right here. You would be using the Brimstone Fragments. You're casting a spell. It blows up, right? The animation's going to look a little different. This arch that shows you where it's actually landing is going to look a little different, but it's the basics of, doing raiding. Now, it might not end up this way. You might have to like run up and place something on it or do, not be able to throw it that far. And obviously it's going to take more than one, but I got the raiding set up to where things can be destructed. Same with doors. I added a couple doors, changed a couple things, but we'll get that back in there. Okay, so let's talk about workflow. So these pieces right here, this house, the castle, the walls, same thing with this fort, trebuchet, this particular little piece, sections of the wall, all of this stuff I generated using AI. Now, before, I was just going into Trippo and saying, hey, generate something for me, right? I was using text to 3D. Terrible. Comes up with garbage. My workflow now is to use an AI image generator. And a quick tip, if you're looking to use Nano Banana at an extended length for free, use 0 credits, go to Google Flow. You have to log in, but I'm able to use Nano Banana for a pretty long time before it caps out for free versus just going to, it's like Gemini. You just Google Nano Banana. You can use it like a couple times. I can do a lot with this. So my workflow consists of making the images of the 3D object that I want, right? I make that image first in here, and then I upload that image into Trippo. So for example, right now I'm looking at, hey, I kind of want, some other small monuments in the game. So I told it to, here, I'll even show you the prompt. Medieval fantasy ruin, lookout tower made of wood and metal. This one made of stone and wood, right? And it's making me these images. So I think the one we have here is this guy. So it made me this image. First it had this. I told it to remove the ground because it's going to texture this thing. It's going to color it. It might not match my terrain very well. And the collision might get all weird with all these little pieces. So remove the ground. And I'm like, okay, I know that 3D model-wise, I could probably make the collision pretty easy for players to be able to walk up these stairs, put a couple boxes, they'd be able to like jump in and then maybe like a weird ladder on the side and then get to the very top. So I take that image, I put it into Trippo. I'm using Smart Mesh, which your poly count goes from 500 to 20,000. If you go into this HD model and you start just rendering a bunch of those and putting them in your game, you're going to get your FPS of like 2. So I just did this, right? So I downloaded this image from Flow that I created, and then I put it into Trippo, Smart Mesh. For the monuments and stuff, if you've got a decently large 3D object, I'm going to use 20,000 polygons, which isn't a crazy amount. But for things like this little bandage with, the mana fragments in it, I used, I think, 500 polygons because it doesn't need to be crazy, right? This will just be an item that's thrown on the ground. Players aren't going to look at it that much. They'll be able to tell what it is. So let's go back here. Smart Mesh is interesting in terms of it will generate these models for you without texture first. So you can kind of take a look and re-roll if you need to. The moment you texture this model, you cannot do your re-roll. So your free re-roll. So this actually looks kind of crappy because the stairs aren't lined up. So we're going to re-roll this. It's very fast on this, but it takes a while to do the texturing. So if you notice from my wooden fort monument that I had, here's all the building pieces, right? I've done this a couple different ways. I was trying to get away with doing this the cheapest way possible. And I'll show you what I mean by that is I told it to, let's see, right here. I told it to make some asset packs, right? So I told it, hey, I want some building pieces all in a big pack, all separated with a white background. That would allow me to go into Trippo and put all of that, and I would get all the models instead of doing them one by one because I have to use credits to do it. Here's the goblin that we saw earlier. Here is one of the other characters. It's a raccoona. It's essentially a little raccoon kind of guy. That's a warlock. But here's an example of a picture where I got all my potions in one go and not one potion at a time. Again, so that ruined castle monument that you saw, that was an image. I don't think I actually got that image in Flow. I might have. I would just have to dig around to see where it's at. So let's see. Anyways, so I got that image out of AI where it's all of these things in one go, and then I put it in Trippo. The challenge I have with this is you see these blurry spots, that stays blurry. That does not get any more detailed at all. So they kind of look like crap. So I started switching it up. If you do barrels and stuff like that, I did some barrel packs that look pretty decent. I took the barrels out individually and made them all into assets. So I didn't have to spend credits for each and every single one. But it does way better if you're doing one thing at a time. So I don't know why this thing's not loading. So like these, right? I just got the image of this, put it in there. Here was my attempt at doing a wooden fort asset pack. Notice how the texturing just gets blurry, and if you're doing a bunch of these at one time. So that is why I do one at a time. It just looks better. It costs more, but it looks better. Some of these are just good enough, especially for now. So back to this. Okay, we did a re-roll. It added this little platform here. I'm not too concerned about it. This floating piece, not super happy about. Sometimes you strike out on these, like all these ones that are still not textured. I did not like after all of my free rerolls. When you reroll, you cannot go back. It will wipe it. But I did things like the herbs and the flowers that are in the game in here. Again, I went to Flow. Let me show you guys. Went to Flow, made some images. I recommend doing a white or background on whatever it is. So my workflow is make the image in Flow. They added these new aspect ratios. I do a 1x1. I make the image. Usually I tell it like isometric view. I'll tell you this guy. I might not have done it on these particular ones. It won't even tell me the prompt. I'll do like isometric view. white background, and then whatever it is. And then for these, I'll say like thumbnail. So it'll center it. It'll give it a little bit of a gap around the edge. I go into Adobe, remove the background, and then boom, I have the thumbnail. And then I will go into Trippo, throw it in here, and then boom, I've got a 3D asset. So I have both a thumbnail and 3D asset from this workflow. So it's in the game and ready to go. So you can kind of just make whatever you want. So let's go back here and let's see what this reroll ended up as. Again, with the broken stairs, I kind of don't mind that. Less things floating. I can get rid of this in Blender. It's still giving a door. Let's try it one more time. You are stuck with whatever reroll you end up on. So choose wisely. And just like that, it looks worse. So, you know, I've got a decent amount of credits. I am going to redo this one. It's pretty rare that I have to completely redo it, right? Meaning, you know, I got all the way to the end. I only have a few of these that are like that. Some of these I even changed what I was doing altogether. Nice, thank you. So we're going to redo this, and then I'll show you guys what the whole texturing thing is. But my workflow for everything now, here's like a torch, is whatever I need, I go into, I'm using like Nano Banana. You can use whatever you want, ChatGPT, whatever's going to make it an image. Go make your image. Again, to save yourself some time, make it to where it looks like a thumbnail so you can remove the background, still use it in Trippo. Having the isometric view where it's kind of like up and to the side also helps when you put it in there in terms of it making the object proper in 3D and all that kind of stuff. So like I did the spell books. I can show you another trick if you have a bunch of the same mesh that you want to use. So for example, and a different texture, I had a bunch of spell books, but I want all the spell books to look pretty much the same in terms of the 3D portion of it, what it looks like in 3D. I just want it to have different writing, different colors, all that kind of stuff. So what I did was, nothing is organized in this. Nope. What I did was I went in here and I might be in this guy. I made a bunch of different spell books, and I made a spell book that I liked. I looked at it. I liked it. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know what that stuff is. And then I told Nano Banana, don't change the pose or anything else. Just make it a Blizzard spellbook, right? And it would go in, keep everything the same, look the same, like the outline's the same and everything else. And it would just make it blue and say Blizzard on it and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm very surprised I can't find this. I'm keep clicking on the same shit. So in Trippo, when you go in here, and we'll texture this, we'll find a good one. Let's see what we got. Boom, good enough. You can like jump up as long as stuff's not like floating. I don't know what that is. That's kind of creepy. Got some boards on the ground. It gave us a door, even though there's no door, but not super worried about it. We're going to texture this. So when you click on texture, it's automatically going to load in the image that you use to generate with, and you can generate the texture. But the other thing you can do is if you have the exact same images that you're using, right? So you have this image. Let me see if I got. It's not going to be here. It's probably this. Okay. So notice it's actually even saying what the prompt is for the file name. Keep pose unchanged. Change it so spellbook of arc. Blah 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 blah. That was my prompt I used in Nano Banana, and notice that each one of these spellbooks is the outline's the same. You know, a lot of this stuff is the same. It's just doing different writing, different colors. Well, you can go in and change this picture to something else if it's identical and use the same 3D model that you already made, just wrap it in a different texture. So I was able to do that with all the spellbooks. Okay, so we have our textured watchtower right here. Looks pretty good. It's definitely got some weird thing going on here. I don't know why it's tripping out. A little foliage, whatever. I can show you guys how to do a very down and dirty quick collision. It's not necessarily what I would recommend, but if you need to do collision on an object, and it doesn't really matter It's not going to like drop your frame rate or anything. If it's not going to, normally it will. You will export this guy, open it up in Blender. We will delete this for the purpose of this video. And so you have your model in Blender. If you hold down Z, you can go to wireframe, you can go to solid, you can go to material preview or rendered. So you can get your texture on here. I have adjust the dimensions. So notice, it's 15. When I loaded this in, it was like less than 1 meter tall. My character is 2 meters tall. So I wanted to make sure that it's sized to the world. I want to make sure this door, even though they're not going to go through it, is about the same size of the character or more. Hopefully it's more. So it's about 2.5. So that's fine. So to make a collision in Godot without doing all the white boxes I showed you guys earlier, you can hold down Shift, hit D as in dog, and you get this. If you right click, it goes back. It just duplicates the item or the object, right? So what you would want to do is we're going to rename these _COL, Ruin Stone Watchtower _COL. Now, I don't know why it's... There we go. Now when I export this, so I'm going to export this guy. We're going to put it just in monuments. We're going to say Ruined Stone Watchtower. Awesome. If you guys can't tell, I used to play Life is Feudal Your Own before they destroyed the game. Export this guy. What happens with this is it's duplicating. So I have 2 of these on top of each other, but one of them is going to Godot's going to read it as collision. So I'm going to go back to Godot. We're going to take a quick look. Here is our Ruined Stone Watchtower right here in the game. Notice it's already has a collision shape because we did that. New inherited scene. Boom. It's going to use all of the polygons and it's going to make them collision. Now, again, I did this with the fort the first time. And when I walked in here, my FPS dropped through the floor. So I was getting like 11 or like 2 FPS. So this isn't really recommended, especially if you're, I'm going to, moving forward, use cylinders, blocks, basic stuff. Also, if you have really weird polygons on these, like these little shapes and where it gets all weird different angles, in Godot at least, your character will catch on those and it will prevent the character from moving at all. It'll get stuck. It'll do a bunch of weird stuff. But if you need like a down and dirty way to do collision, that's a very easy way to do it. I am actually going to not save this. So I'm not going to do it that way. We're going to delete that guy. So as far as like the models, so again, I went into Flow. I made a picture, right, with Nano Banana of this guy in a T-pose. And then I threw it in here, right? There's the picture right there. I threw it in here. It made the character, actually made this a high definition character. If you do the low poly, even at 20,000 polygons, it gets real weird, real fast. So I did, the high def model. So cool, I have my guy, right? Well, if we go into Mixamo, boom. If you upload your character into Mixamo and go through the prompts, it will do the rigging for you on your character. Now, Mixamo does not like GBL files, or GLB, sorry. It likes OBJ or FB. I believe my workflow is like FB, and then go to Mixamo, upload that guy. And when you download from Mixamo, it's going to come out FBX as well. So I got the guy in there, right? You upload it, it'll tell you, it'll have these little balls that you put on its like chin and elbows and stuff to help it map. And then you can go in here and click on animations and download them. So oddly enough, the workflow that I have doesn't make any sense, but it works for some reason. I'll tell you what it is. I don't know why it works. But getting these characters, getting this character right here with the animations and everything, I've did a little bit of a video on the animations previously, but getting them into Godot and having them match up right can be a pain in the butt. So the first thing you want to do is just kind of like find one of the animations that you want to use, one of many, obviously, right? You're going to want walking and whatever. You want a bunch of them. But let's say it's, this taunt, whatever that is. And you're going to download it with the skin, which means it's going to come with the armature and this dude, the mesh. You're going to open, so you're going to download that. Then you're going to go find all of your other animations you want. So let's say whatever this is. Okay, cool. I want him praying. You download it without the skin. So it's just going to get the armature for the animation. So you go download a bunch of those. For some reason in Blender, when you import them, so you're going to first import you import them all at the same time, including the one that comes with this guy. But when I import all of them and then delete all of the ones that are just the animation only and leave just the one with the guy, it actually adds all the animations anyways. Don't know why, don't know if it's a bug, maybe that's how it's supposed to work, I have no idea. But I can show you guys what that looks like with that workflow. For some reason, that was the only way I was able to get it to work. Here's the guy, here's all the animations, and again, what I did is I put this guy into Blender with all the animations. I don't know why it's not moving up and down. And then I deleted all the animations and it still kept them. So not sure what's up with that. The other thing is, there is a T-pose quote unquote animation in Mixamo. I recommend at least having that in there, especially if you're going to be putting armor and stuff on him. That's this, where it just stands in a T-pose. I would recommend using this for a start. That way, if you're going to get armor and stuff and you need to put it on his body and do weight painting, something I have tried and failed at, you have something to work off of that's very easy versus him being in this pose and trying to put armor on kind of thing. So I would start with this and then add all of your other animations. Again, I don't know why that works. I have a problem in Godot where I export out of Mixamo, I add the animations and I put it in Godot and they're all like 90 degrees off and he looks really, really weird. I might even have an example of this. But to be honest, it's probably one of these, not this guy. And it probably just has to do with me not, yeah, here we go. Look at that. Yeah, hold on. No, that one's good. One of these gets really weird. Probably just has to do with me not understanding certain things in Blender and how they work. Notice how many attempts I've tried at this. Let's see. Yeah, these are all working. If you put it into Blender, you'll notice right out of Mixamo, when you download this, right, with skin, without skin, whatever, and you open this FBX file in Blender, it will show up as like a tiny, tiny dot. If you try to resize that thing and even like keep the transforms, etc., for me, it messes up the animation in Godot. So I leave everything tiny, whatever, and then I resize it if I need to in Godot. But yeah, that's pretty much what I got. I think the other thing was the torch. I can show you guys the torch real quick. Okay, we still got, he's coming. He's coming for us. Okay, so I got a torch. There are some torch animations where you hold the torch and strafe and crouch and stuff in Mixamo, and then I just put the torch in his hand, use some of the fire I already had for some other wall torches, and then lighting. Some reason, notice the shadows are coming from the bottom. For some reason, the omnidirectional light had to be under the terrain for it to light the terrain. Not sure why. I'll have to figure that out. I tried for like an hour or two, and then I just moved on to something else, so I just left it under there. But if you notice, it's right now it's under the terrain, the light source for this torch. So if I go up, notice it doesn't light up the terrain. I don't know what that is. I'll have to figure that out. So I just kind of left it like this for the moment. But yeah, we got a torch. Wow, there's a lot of flowers spawn there. So that happens when it's purely random. All right, guys, that's it for me. I will keep you posted. I'll try to do another post this week with any changes that I add. I'm going to keep adding monuments. I'm going to add more of these guys, different types of mobs and attacks and stuff and how they interact. But I will keep you updated. I will try to post more often. And I will be putting this on Steam. It'll be locked. You won't be able to buy it, but you can play it with a key. If you're interested in test playing it, hit me up on Discord or leave a comment on YouTube. Once I get it up there, I will have a list. I have a small group of people that are already willing, but any others, please let me know, and I might get you in there for some play testing when it's ready to go. So with that, YouTube, I will catch you on the next one.